Welcome back to the channel where we dive into the fascinating world of coins, collectibles, and all things that hold hidden value you never expected. Today, we're uncovering the surprising story behind a tiny yet incredibly valuable piece of US currency that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. The 1990p Jefferson 5-cent coin, or simply put, the nickel that could be sitting in your change jar right now and be worth over $10,000 thanks to its rare errors and mistakes that transformed it from a mundane coin into a collector's dream. So buckle up and listen closely, because what you're about to hear could quite literally change the way you look at pocket change forever. Now, when we talk about coins that reach five-figure value, most people think about gold coins, silver dollars, maybe some obscure 1800s mintage that barely exists anymore. But what if I told you that a coin minted as recently as 1990 and widely circulated, yes, we're talking millions, could fetch a 5-digit price not because it's old, or because it's made from some precious metal, but because of a bizarre, rare, and incredibly sought-after set of minting mistakes that slipped past the scrutinizing eyes of quality control at the Philadelphia Mint and landed right in the hands of everyday Americans? So what exactly makes the 1990p nickel worth this much? And what are the key signs you should look out for if you suspect you've got one of these jackpot nickels sitting unnoticed among your other spare change? Well, first, let's address the basics. The 1990p nickel, like other modern Jefferson nickels, should feature the familiar image of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, with clean edges, standard alignment, and a uniform finish. But several coins from the 1990 Philadelphia mintage began to show inconsistencies that, at first, seemed minor, until experts started digging deeper and realized these weren't just slight production defects, they were serious mint errors that altered the very structure, lettering, and presentation of the coin, effectively making each one unique. And in the collector's world, uniqueness equals value. Now, one of the most notable and valuable errors seen on these nickels is the full step error, and while full steps generally refer to Jefferson nickels that show complete and uninterrupted steps on the Monticello building, which in itself adds collector value, what we're talking about with the 1990p is a full step combined with a struck-through grease error or even a missing clad layer, which completely transforms the coin's surface, dulls the details, or causes partial design invisibility, making these coins immediate red flags for error collectors. In some instances, entire portions of the Monticello are faint or missing, or the P mint mark appears doubled, misplaced, or partially repunched, which can be confirmed with high magnification or die study. And in the case of this nickel, the 1990p struck with a dramatic die clash is one of the rarest forms, where the obverse and reverse dies hit each other without a coin blank between them, imprinting ghost-like images of the opposing design onto each die and consequently transferring these eerie mirrored features onto the coin blanks that follow. And let me tell you, for experienced collectors, spotting these anomalies is like striking gold. Another big one is off-center strikes, which happen when the coin blank isn't properly centered under the dies, causing part of the design to be missing and exposing a blank crescent of metal. Depending on how severe the off-center strike is, and whether the date is still visible, such a coin could easily surpass the $1,000 mark, and if it's combined with a double strike or misalignment, that price skyrockets, especially if the coin is in mint or near mint condition. And speaking of condition, let's talk about grading. Professional coin grading services like PCGS or NGC will assess everything from luster and strike sharpness to visible wear and tear. And if your error-laden 1990p nickel happens to land in a high grade, like MS65 or higher, the value only multiplies exponentially. Imagine a nickel struck off-center by 30%, with full steps, a visible die clash, and struck through grease on Jefferson's face. If that coin also gets an MS66 rating, you could be looking at a 5-figure payday without ever setting foot in a bank vault or auction house. And yes, some of these coins have actually sold for over $10,000 in high-stakes auctions where collectors compete fiercely for rare mint errors, especially those from common years like 1990, because the irony of rarity and commonality is highly appealing to those in the numismatic community. And what adds to the mystery is that some of these errors weren't reported until years after their circulation began. meaning a decent number of them may still be lurking in old coin jars, inherited collections, or even rolls of nickels sitting in vaults or drawers untouched for decades. There's also evidence that some 1990p nickels were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, possibly intended for foreign coinage or another US denomination, meaning you could find a 1990p nickel that weighs less than 5 grams, rings at a different pitch when dropped, or even shows a copper-colored edge rather than the expected nickel gray. All of which are key indicators of a major mint blunder, and mint blunders mean big bucks. There's also a growing interest in transitional errors, where coins are struck using dies or blanks from a previous or future year's specifications, and although that hasn't been confirmed with the 1990p yet, rumors persist in forums and among die-hard collectors that transitional anomalies exist, especially in early or late 1990 batches where the mint may have been switching dies or planchets in preparation for 1991. So if you happen to find a 1990p nickel that looks or feels slightly off, it could be an unreported transitional error worth submitting for authentication. Another rare error includes partial collar strikes, where the coin appears to be stretched or has a strange rim appearance due to the collar die failing during the strike, creating what collectors call a railroad rim. And when paired with other errors like die breaks, those jagged raised lines caused by a cracked die, these flawed nickels become not only fascinating conversation pieces but extremely valuable artifacts of mint history. Don't forget about double denominations either, which are nearly unheard of in the 5-cent world but have occasionally surfaced in bizarre forms, like a nickel struck over a dime or foreign planchet, and those kinds of oddities break pricing charts entirely. So whether you're a beginner casually scanning your change or an experienced numismatist who's always on the lookout for the next big find, the 1990p nickel stands as a glaring reminder that extraordinary value can sometimes be found in the most ordinary places, and it proves that when you combine human error, mechanical failure, and sheer randomness with a coin as commonly circulated as the nickel, the result can be a jaw-dropping financial windfall for the person lucky enough to spot one and smart enough to get it authenticated. So take a moment, check your change, pull out that old coffee can full of nickels you've been meaning to cash in, and give those coins a second look, because if you happen to spot a 1990p with oddities, be it double dies, off-center strikes, grease-filled details, or anything that looks suspiciously different from a normal Jefferson nickel, you might just be holding a tiny piece of history that's worth more than a car, a down payment on a house, or even your yearly salary. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you love uncovering stories like these where small treasures hold massive value. Because in the world of numismatics, anything is possible, and even a nickel can make you rich. Now, if you thought the 1990p nickel story was wild, wait until you hear about another seemingly common yet astonishingly valuable coin that has stunned collectors and fetched up to $12,000 at auction: the 1981 Jefferson 5-cent coin, a coin most people wouldn't give a second glance, minted in the millions at the Denver Mint. But due to a series of rare minting mistakes and defects that have only recently been fully appreciated by the numismatic world, certain examples of the 1981 nickel have become incredibly sought after and command jaw-dropping prices that no one would expect from a coin that's technically modern and widely circulated. Now, the key to the high value of these 1981 nickels lies in a perfect storm of unusual error types, pristine condition, and the inherent appeal of rarity within a common year. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins. But within that enormous mintage were a handful of flawed specimens that slipped through the cracks of the Mint's quality control, and today, finding one of these flawed nickels is like winning a mini lottery, especially because they're often hiding in plain sight, mixed in with pocket change or hoarded in coffee cans, forgotten coin albums, or unsearched bank rolls. And what sets these rare 1981 nickels apart are a combination of known and lesser-known minting anomalies that make them a magnet for serious collectors. For starters, one of the most valuable errors associated with the 1981 nickel is the overstruck or double denomination error. This occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet meant for another denomination, such as a penny or dime, and in some extremely rare cases, 1981 nickels have been found struck over Roosevelt dimes, resulting in a bizarre coin where elements of both designs are visible. Imagine seeing Jefferson's bust overlapping with Roosevelt's outline, or Monticello bleeding into the reverse of a Roosevelt dime, and when certified by a professional grading service, these coins become numismatic unicorns, routinely selling for thousands of dollars due to their extreme rarity and fascinating nature. Another major factor that boosts the value of certain 1981D nickels is the presence of full steps on Monticello, a designation that refers to the visibility and completeness of the steps on the reverse side of the coin. And while full steps are always prized among Jefferson nickel collectors, the 1981D issue is particularly scarce in full step condition due to the way the dies were prepared and used at the Denver Mint that year, which often resulted in weak strikes and poorly defined detail, meaning that any coin from this year that exhibits full, uninterrupted steps is rare by default, and if you add a mint error on top of that, like a die clash, a major strike through, or an off-center strike, the value can skyrocket. Especially in higher grades like MS65 or better, some of the most valuable 1981D nickels have a combination of errors, for example, coins that were struck through foreign debris like cloth fibers, grease, or even pieces of wire, resulting in distorted images, missing devices, or unusual textures across the coin's surface. And when you look at one of these error coins under magnification, the abnormalities become clear. Jefferson's eye might be smeared, the mint mark might appear sunken or doubled, or parts of Monticello might be completely faded or partially missing. These strike-through errors often go unnoticed by casual observers, but among collectors, they are gold mines, and if such a coin is preserved in near-mint condition with strong luster and no post-mint damage, auction prices can easily reach into the five-figure range. Let's not forget about repunched mint marks, or RPMs, which are another significant driver of value in 1981D nickels. The Denver Mint used hand-punched mint marks up until the late 80s, and during this time, it wasn't uncommon for the D to be punched more than once, slightly misaligned, resulting in a repunched D that looks doubled or shifted, and while minor RPMs might only add modest value, more dramatic examples, especially when combined with other features like full steps or additional strike errors, can become extremely valuable to collectors who specialize in error varieties. There have also been reports of 1981D nickels showing off-center strikes ranging from minor 5% misalignments to dramatic 40% off-center coins where large portions of the design are missing, and as we mentioned earlier with the 1990P, off-center errors can add significant value, particularly when the date and mint mark remain visible, because collectors want to see proof of the coin's origin alongside the minting defect. And when you pair an off-center strike with high grade and perhaps even a die crack or die break, the result is a one-of-a-kind coin that demands a premium. Die cracks and die breaks, by the way, are another key piece of the puzzle, caused by aging or damaged dies that develop fractures during the intense pressure of coin striking. These flaws appear as raised, irregular lines across the coin, and when these cracks become severe enough, they lead to what's known as cuds, which are areas of the coin where part of the design has been obliterated and replaced by a blob-like void, and collectors go crazy for these dramatic cuds, especially when they interfere with key areas of the coin like Jefferson's portrait or the Monticello steps. There's also the rare but intriguing possibility of wrong planchet errors, where the coin is struck on a blank intended for a different composition or even another country's currency, which can result in unusual color, weight, or edge detail. Imagine finding a 1981D nickel that's visibly too light or too heavy, has a coppery hue, or rings with a different tone when dropped. And you may very well be holding a wrong planchet coin that could fetch thousands once authenticated. And then there's the ultra-rare scenario of double strikes, where a coin is struck more than once in the collar, resulting in overlapping images that can range from subtle to spectacular. Double-struck coins are rare enough in any series, but for 1981D nickels, they're almost unheard of, making each discovery a potential headline in the error coin community and a prize trophy at auction. With all these possible errors, from overstrikes and full steps to strike-throughs, off-center strikes, RPMs, cuds, wrong planchets, and double strikes, the 1981 D nickel becomes an absolute powerhouse of potential value, particularly when found in high grades certified by PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, where collectors can bid with confidence knowing they're acquiring something truly rare and authenticated. And what's even more exciting is that many of these rare variants remain undiscovered, still resting in drawers, boxes, jars, or forgotten rolls, waiting to be found by sharp-eyed collectors who know what to look for. So the next time you're sorting your change or visiting a coin shop, keep an eye out for that humble 1981 D nickel, because if it has any of the rare features we just talked about, whether it's a visible cud, a full step designation, a dramatic off-center strike, or an overstrike on a dime, it could be worth far more than 5 cents, and in some documented cases, up to $12,000 or more depending on rarity, eye appeal, and collector demand. So take the time to examine your coins carefully. Consider investing in a good magnifying loupe. Compare your coins to known examples listed in error guides or sold at auction, and if you find something that looks unusual, don't hesitate to have it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. Because as with the 1990p nickel, the 1981 D Jefferson 5-cent piece proves once again that some of the most incredible coin finds are not locked away in museums or buried under the ground, but are quietly waiting to be discovered by people like you who take the time to look a little closer. Continuing our deep dive into modern nickels that are worth far more than their face value, we now turn our attention to another unassuming coin that's been making waves in the numismatic world, the 1987p Jefferson 5-cent coin, a coin so seemingly ordinary that most people wouldn't think twice before tossing it into a vending machine or a Coinstar machine. But as we've already seen with the 1990p and 1981D nickels, even the most common-looking coins can hide extraordinary secrets, and in the case of the 1987p, certain specimens have been verified to be worth as much as $11,000 thanks to a rare combination of minting errors, scarcity in high grade, and collector demand for oddities that push the boundaries of standard coin production. So let's unravel what makes this nickel so unique and what you should look for if you're hoping to spot one in the wild. First, the P. Mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is historically known for producing coins in massive quantities, especially in the 1980s, and in 1987 alone, hundreds of millions of nickels were produced. So why would a coin from such a common mintage suddenly command a 5-figure price tag? Well, the answer lies in the rare missteps that occurred during its production, the preservation of a handful of these flawed coins in nearly perfect condition, and the coin community's ever-growing interest in unusual errors that transform ordinary coins into legendary pieces of minting history. One of the major types of errors found in the 1987p nickel is the dramatic die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind mirrored images of each die on the opposite surface. When a coin is struck after this happens, it inherits a ghostly, almost surreal look with partial outlines of Monticello appearing on Jefferson's face or Jefferson's bust ghosted behind the Monticello building. And if that's not strange enough, some of these examples also exhibit strong full steps on Monticello, a rare feature for this year in mint, since the Philadelphia Mint had a reputation in the 80s for producing nickels with mushy, low-detail strikes. This means that a 1987p nickel with full steps alone is already collectible, but when paired with a die clash error or a misaligned die strike, it becomes the kind of specimen that advanced collectors are willing to spend thousands for, and that's not even including the rare instances where a double die obverse (DDO) has been discovered. Now, a double die obverse occurs when the die itself has been engraved improperly, with doubling appearing most commonly on the date, mint mark, or the phrase, "In God We Trust." And when this doubling is strong and visible to the naked eye, the coin's value skyrockets. There are reports of 1987p nickels exhibiting moderate to strong doubling in the inscriptions around Jefferson's portrait, which when combined with other features like full steps or a high mint state grade can push a coin well beyond the $1,000 mark and up into 5-figure territory at auction, especially if it's slabbed and graded MS66 or higher by PCGS or NGC. Another highly prized error associated with this coin is the off-metal strike, particularly when a 1987p nickel is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. And in rare cases, these errors include nickels struck on copper penny blanks or even foreign coin planchets intended for U.S. trade partners. These mistakes are extremely rare and usually weigh less or have different edge characteristics than standard nickels, so if you come across a 1987p that feels unusually light or has a strange coloration, especially if the design seems oddly struck or compressed, you may be holding one of these elusive wrong planchet coins, which are known to fetch thousands of dollars due to their visual appeal and rarity. Also noteworthy are misaligned die strikes, where the obverse and reverse dies are slightly or significantly off, resulting in a lopsided or skewed image. While mild examples of this error are relatively common, a 1987p with extreme misalignment, particularly one where the date is still fully visible, could be an incredible find, especially if it's combined with a strong reverse design and sharp overall condition. And then there's the error known as broad struck, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar, leading to a wider, flatter appearance, with rim details that look stretched or incomplete. And when these broad-struck nickels are found with full legends, date, and visible mint mark, they often become the centerpiece of a collection due to their odd appearance and scarcity. Another contributor to the 1987p's high value in certain cases is the occurrence of struck-through debris errors, where foreign material like grease, metal shavings, or even pieces of wire become lodged between the die and the planchet during the striking process, causing portions of the design to appear missing or heavily distorted. And collectors love these because they are essentially one-of-a-kind errors that document the industrial side of minting, the gritty, flawed, unpredictable side of the coin creation process that most people never see. And when combined with a sharp strike, minimal circulation wear, and visible full steps, these struck-through error coins can jump in value considerably, with a few known 1987p nickels displaying such errors selling for $5,000 to $10,000 depending on condition and visual impact. Another fascinating possibility is a triple strike or rotated die error, where the coin is struck more than once, with the die rotating slightly between each strike, leading to multiple ghosted images on one side or both. These errors are incredibly rare in the Jefferson nickel series and command massive premiums when authenticated, especially if the coin is in uncirculated condition, with strong luster and few marks. And when any of these rare errors are submitted to grading companies and come back with an MS66 or MS67 designation, they immediately enter the high-demand category of the market where five-figure prices are not just possible, but expected in some cases. And perhaps what makes the 1987p so alluring is that the vast majority of these coins went unnoticed for decades, meaning that there could still be undiscovered examples hiding in old rolls, mint sets, or even pocket change, waiting for someone observant enough to realize what they're looking at. As always, the key is education, comparison, and verification. Study the known examples, look for coins that deviate in weight, detail sharpness, color, or strike alignment, and if anything seems off, even subtly, consider having it evaluated by a professional grader, because that slight difference could be the result of a mint error that catapults your coin from 5 cents to 5 figures. And in the case of the 1987p Jefferson nickel, several examples have already proven that this is no myth. These are real coins with real sales, and they demonstrate once again that era coins from the modern era are not only legitimate investment pieces but also highly collectible windows into the unpredictable, occasionally chaotic process of minting U.S. currency. So dig deep, stay curious, and always take a second look at your change, because that next nickel you overlook might just be the very coin worth $11,000, and all because of a hidden error only a handful of people on Earth have ever seen. Now let's jump ahead into more recent territory with a coin that truly surprises collectors not just because of its value, but because of how new it is compared to most high-dollar nickels. Yes, we're talking about the 2011p Jefferson 5-cent coin, a piece of modern pocket change that, under the right circumstances, has sold for up to $8,000 due to a shocking variety of rare mint errors and production defects that have turned a seemingly average coin into a prized possession among error hunters and serious numismatists alike. And what's so remarkable about this particular nickel is that it serves as a clear reminder that big money in the coin world isn't just limited to pre-1960 silver coins or obscure 19th century rarities. Sometimes, it's the coins that are just barely over a decade old, minted in huge numbers at a high-capacity facility like the Philadelphia Mint, that can hide the most valuable mistakes, and the 2011p is a textbook example of this phenomenon, because while it was struck by the millions, only a tiny handful of these coins were made under defective conditions or with misprocessed materials, and these error types have become incredibly valuable due to how visually striking, rare, and technically interesting they are. One of the most valuable known errors in the 2011p nickel is the dramatic off-center strike. And unlike minor off-center errors where just a bit of the coin is askew, these are extreme. Some known examples are as much as 40% off-center, with large crescent-shaped blank areas where the dies completely miss the planchet's edge, and yet, crucially, the date and mint mark remain visible, which is essential for collector interest and value. And if the coin is in a high mint state grade with strong luster and no post-mint damage, collectors will pay thousands for this kind of error alone. Especially if the coin is graded and encapsulated by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC. Another error pushing the 2011p nickel into the thousands of dollars territory is when the coin is struck on the wrong planchet. Yes, that means the nickel accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a penny or dime, or sometimes even a foreign coin blank used by the US Mint to produce coins for other countries, and in these cases, the coin will often be underweight, discolored, or show an edge and ringtone that doesn't match a standard nickel. And these wrong planchet errors are incredibly exciting to collectors because they represent a very rare breakdown in quality control that should not have happened, and since most of these odd coins are removed during production, the few that escape into circulation become instant rarities, and depending on which type of planchet was involved, the value can range from a few $100s to over $8,000 in top condition. One particularly famous 2011p era nickel that sold for thousands had been struck on a copper planchet, giving it a reddish color, instead of the typical grayish silver appearance of a standard nickel, and when authenticated and graded as a mint error, it stunned collectors because it wasn't just an interesting-looking coin. It was a one-of-a-kind accident that should have never made it past quality control, and the buyer who purchased it knew they were getting a coin that might never be replicated again. Another highly collectible type of error seen in some 2011p nickels is the dramatic die clash, which occurs when the coin dies strike each other without a blank planchet in between, causing faint or even vivid images from the reverse design to appear on the obverse die and vice versa. And when a coin is struck with these clashed dies, it creates an eerie, almost spectral doubling or ghosting effect where outlines of Monticello may appear across Jefferson's face or the reverse shows faint remnants of Jefferson's bust. And these die clash errors are especially valuable when they are strong and easily visible, without magnification, and when the coin is otherwise clean, with full strike, minimal bag marks, and high mint luster. These unusual coins can bring in thousands at auction, especially if combined with other features like full steps on Monticello, which is another major value driver. Full steps refer to the horizontal lines at the base of the Monticello building on the reverse side of the coin. And while the mint has improved its die quality over time, full steps are still not guaranteed, especially with modern coins. So when a 2011p shows a sharply struck reverse with every step of Monticello clearly separated, collectors take notice. And if that same coin also has an error, such as a die clash, strike-through, or off-center impression, it becomes not just rare but exceptional, pushing its value way up beyond its 5-cent face value into the thousands. Another spectacular error that has been documented on 2011p nickels is the broad strike, a type of error where the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking, and the result is a coin that appears stretched, slightly flattened, and often has missing or deformed rims. With clean surfaces and a strong central strike, a broad-struck 2011p nickel with the date fully intact can command impressive prices among collectors who seek out dramatic error coins. Some specimens also show evidence of struck-through debris errors, where foreign material like grease, cloth fibers, or even pieces of string or metal become trapped between the die and planchet during striking, causing key features of the design to appear missing or deeply distorted, and depending on the extent and position of the error, especially if it affects Jefferson's face or the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty." These struck-through coins can sell for several $1,000s when authenticated and graded in a high mint state. Another ultra-rare variety includes double struck coins, especially those where the second strike is off-center, leading to overlapping or rotated impressions of Jefferson's face or parts of Monticello, and these errors are dramatic and obvious even to non-collectors, which makes them incredibly attractive for resale or auction. And in some extreme double-strike cases, both impressions are clear and distinct, and if the coin has minimal circulation wear, prices can approach or exceed the $8,000 mark depending on the strength of the error and the coin's eye appeal. Even more intriguing is that the 2011 P series is relatively underexplored by casual collectors because it's so recent, meaning many people simply don't check their change for newer coins, assuming anything post-2010 isn't worth checking. But this couldn't be further from the truth, as the handful of dramatic errors and exceptional strikes that exist in the 2011 P mintage prove that even modern pocket change can become an instant collector's item worth thousands. And since the vast majority of these coins are still in circulation or tucked away in loose change drawers, rolls, and jars across America, it's not only possible but likely that more of these valuable coins remain undiscovered, and it could be you who finds the next one. All it takes is a careful eye, a magnifier, and the knowledge of what to look for, so keep watch for unusual coloration, strike errors, missing features, double impressions, or even odd weight or sound, because all of these could indicate that your 2011 P nickel is something far more valuable than 5 cents. It could be an ultra-rare mint error that makes headlines and brings in $8,000 or more once authenticated and graded, and that's what makes coin hunting so exciting, not just the thrill of the search, but the knowledge that life-changing finds are still out there, and even the most modern coins can become unexpected treasures. And as we continue exploring these hidden gems hiding in plain sight, we now arrive at yet another unexpected modern marvel that's taken the numismatic world by surprise: the 2017 P. Jefferson 5-cent coin, a coin that, to most people, looks completely ordinary at first glance but has proven to be worth up to $7,000 in specific rare cases due to a combination of historic significance, unique minting errors, and an incredibly limited number of high-grade specimens with rare die characteristics that make them extremely desirable to advanced collectors. And what makes this particular coin especially intriguing is that it marks the first time in U.S. history that a nickel minted in Philadelphia bears the P mint mark, which was added in 2017 to commemorate the 225th anniversary of the U.S. Mint, and that small, unassuming P opened the door to a variety of special interest in the series, particularly for collectors who focus on transitional design shifts, historic milestones, and first-year varieties. But beyond the historical context, what's really pushing the 2017 P. Jefferson nickel into high-value territory are a series of shocking minting errors and condition rarities that, when discovered and authenticated, have brought in serious money for the lucky individuals who found them, starting with the notorious off-center strike errors that surfaced in this mintage, some of which are so extreme that up to 50% of the design is missing, leaving Jefferson's face partially cut off, or the Monticello building bleeding off the edge of the coin, and yet the all-important 2017 date and P mint mark remain fully visible, which is a crucial factor for determining whether such an error has serious value, because collectors demand identifiable year and mint origin for authentication and registry purposes, and these dramatic off-center strikes, when combined with high grades, say MS-66 or MS-67, have fetched between $3,000 and $7,000 depending on the intensity of the error and the visual appeal, especially if the coin remains largely uncirculated with minimal handling marks and brilliant luster. Another factor that pushes some 2017 P nickels into the thousands is the presence of die cracks and major die breaks, known to collectors as cuds, where a portion of the die has broken away, causing a blob-like raised area on the coin that obscures part of the design. This is especially eye-catching when it affects a key feature like Jefferson's portrait, the rim, or inscriptions such as, "In God We Trust," and in the 2017 P series, there have been several confirmed examples of such dramatic cuts, including one where the break interrupts the entire upper left quadrant of the coin, making it one of the most visually dramatic Jefferson nickel errors in decades, and when these pieces are discovered in near-mint condition and sent in for certification. They've sold for thousands to collectors eager to own a one-of-a-kind example from a historic mintage year. Struck-through errors also show up in 2017 P nickels, and these are caused when debris, anything from grease and cloth fibers to metal shavings or even bits of the die cap, get lodged between the die and planchet during the striking process, creating voids or distortions in the design. And one famous example includes a 2017 P nickel where Jefferson's nose and eye were almost completely missing due to a strike-through of hardened grease, which altered the appearance of the coin so dramatically that it became an instant sensation when listed at auction. And because such an error occurred during the first ever use of the P mint mark on a nickel, it gained historical cachet in addition to visual uniqueness. And coins with dramatic struck-through features that obscure or warp the portrait or lettering are highly sought after in all series, but especially in key commemorative years like this. Furthermore, double die obverse DDO and double die reverse DDR errors have been reported in this mintage, with some examples showing clear doubling in the words "Liberty in God We Trust," or even in the date and mint mark, and although not all of these double dies are extreme, the strongest ones, those visible without magnification or clearly distinct even to casual collectors, can push a coin's value dramatically upward, particularly when the coin is preserved in high grade, free from circulation damage or contact marks, and since double die errors often result from misalignments during the hubbing of dies, they are finite in number and do not continue indefinitely, making each example a snapshot of a moment in minting failure that cannot be replicated, thus raising its long-term value. And then we come to coins struck on the wrong planchet, a rare but captivating error in which a nickel is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, most notably pennies or foreign coinage. And when this occurs, the resulting coin may be lighter in weight, different in color, or visibly compressed in its design, and a few known examples of 2017 P nickels struck on copper-plated zinc-cent planchets have been authenticated, displaying reddish hues and a partial design due to the size mismatch, and these wrong planchet coins are almost always worth several $1,000s, especially when the date and mint mark are still legible, with some crossing the $7,000 threshold when submitted to a grading service and encapsulated with a major error designation. Even more incredible are examples where two or more errors occur simultaneously, such as a 2017 P nickel that is not only off-center but also double-struck, or one with a broad strike error and a strong die clash visible on both sides. These compound errors are incredibly rare and highly desirable, and in such cases, the value of the coin can multiply dramatically due to the layered uniqueness of its features. And considering the overall modern nature of the coin, it's a powerful reminder that even brand new coins rolling off the mint presses can contain mistakes that turn them into instant collectibles. Let's also not forget that the coin market has responded very enthusiastically to the 2017 P nickel because of its unique place in minting history, being the first year ever that a P mint mark was placed on the Jefferson nickel, making all 2017 P nickels technically a first-of-type issue. And anytime you have a coin that marks a minting first, collectors are drawn to it, regardless of errors. But when you add dramatic visual errors like off-center strikes, struck-through voids, cuds, die clashes, and double dies, the result is an extreme rise in value, and several of these coins, especially those in MS-67 condition or with multiple verified errors, have fetched between $5,000 and $7,000 in private sales and online auctions, proving once again that modern coins are no longer just spare change. They are opportunities waiting to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors who know what they're looking for. So the next time you pull a 2017 P nickel from your change, give it a closer inspection, because with the right error, clean surfaces, and strong strike, you could be looking at a 5-cent piece that's worth up to $7,000 or more. And in the world of modern numismatics, That's what makes the hunt so exciting, the idea that any coin, even the ones you got back as change from a fast food order, could end up being the find of a lifetime. And now we take a leap back in time to one of the most explosive and fascinating examples of hidden value in the entire Jefferson nickel series. A coin so deceptively common that millions of people have handled it without the faintest idea of the fortune it could represent under the right conditions. And we're talking about none other than the 1964 Jefferson 5-cent coin. A nickel so ubiquitous in circulation that it might be the most familiar coin to American hands, yet some specific and extraordinary examples of the 1964 nickel have sold for as much as $50,000 due to a potent combination of mysterious minting anomalies, unintentional design transitions, die varieties, and nearly mythical quality specimens that defy what collectors thought possible, and to understand just how a coin produced in such staggering numbers, over 1 billion minted between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, could possibly reach such astronomical values, we have to explore a range of very rare circumstances that turned a tiny handful of these otherwise unremarkable nickels into high-end numismatic treasures, starting with the critical background of why the 1964 nickel is so iconic in the first place. Because that year marked the height of the coin shortage crisis in the United States, a period during which the government massively ramped up coin production in response to hoarding and inflation fears. And as a result, quality control was far from the mint's top priority, which means 1964 nickels are infamous for their weak strikes, die wear, and inconsistencies. But that also makes the rare exceptions stand out even more, particularly when it comes to coins that exhibit full steps on the Monticello reverse, because a 1964 nickel with sharp, uninterrupted full steps is so exceedingly rare that collectors will pay tens of thousands of dollars just for that feature alone. Especially when it's paired with a mint state grade of MS66 or higher, and those examples that exhibit 6 full steps with absolutely no bridging or weakness across the lower steps are almost mythical, with some of the finest certified examples graded by PCGS and NGC commanding auction prices upwards of $30,000 to $50,000 due to the extreme rarity of such a perfect strike in a year where most dies were overused and undermaintained. But the story doesn't stop with condition rarity. 1964 nickels also harbor a series of dramatic die varieties and errors that push their value even higher, with one of the most famous being the 1964 specimen, strike nickel, a mysterious issue that resembles proof quality but was not struck as part of any official proof set, and these specimen coins have sharper detail, mirror-like fields, and an overall appearance that seems to blend proof and business strike characteristics. And for years numismatists debated their origin until a few were certified and recognized by major grading services as legitimate special strikes, and because so few are known, estimated to be under 20 in existence, these coins have sold for between $35,000 and $50,000 at major auctions, with bidding wars erupting between top-tier collectors wanting to secure a piece of mint history that was never meant to be seen by the public. Then there's the highly elusive 1964 nickel struck on silver planchets, which by law shouldn't even exist, since nickels were not composed of silver during that time, yet a few documented examples have surfaced over the years where a 1964 nickel has the weight, color, and toning of a silver coin, and when tested, they reveal a composition matching 90% silver blanks left over from earlier coinage or misfed into the nickel press. These wrong planchet errors are among the most sought-after mistakes in U.S. mint history and, if authenticated, are worth tens of thousands of dollars depending on grade and clarity of the strike. Yet another extraordinary error found in some 1964 nickels includes the triple strike errors, in which the coin is struck 3 times, often with rotation or misalignment between strikes, resulting in overlapping portraits, doubled letters, and distorted outlines that make the coin look like a surreal piece of art, and when such errors are preserved in mint state condition, their rarity and visual drama make them highly valuable, sometimes exceeding $20,000 depending on how pronounced the error is, and how much of the original design remains readable, and what makes these triple strikes even more Shocking is how they managed to leave the mint undetected at a time when the production process was under pressure to deliver quantity, not quality, and some errors like this were simply pushed into circulation without question. The 1964 nickels are also known for die clashes, where Jefferson's profile is ghosted into the reverse or parts of Monticello show through the obverse. And although minor clashes are common for the year, the most extreme clashes, where entire elements of both designs are visible on the wrong sides, are so rare that certified examples in high grade have reached $10,000 to $20,000 and higher depending on severity and eye appeal, and these coins are often overlooked in circulation because their flaws are subtle to the untrained eye. But a die clash that leaves visible reverse elements across Jefferson's face or lettering from the reverse appearing behind the portrait is a true prize. Then we have the double die obverse errors, and while they are not as well known in 1964 nickels as they are in other denominations, there are reports of strong doubling in God We Trust, and the date that, when verified, make the coin immensely desirable due to the doubling being the result of a hubbing misalignment, not machine doubling, and when graded highly and combined with other desirable features like full steps or pristine luster, these doubled die 1964 nickels can easily hit the $10,000 to $25,000 range depending on strength and condition. And let's not forget about the fascinating transitional planchet rumors. Some believe that during the chaotic production year of 1964, certain transitional planchets or experimental compositions may have been tested or accidentally used, and while definitive proof remains elusive, the numismatic world remains on alert for unusual weight, tone, or magnetism in any 1964 nickels, and any such coin, if discovered and scientifically verified, could easily break sales records and surpass $50,000 or more depending on its backstory and appeal. Broad struck errors, rotated dies, and off-center 1964 nickels with visible date and mint mark also command large premiums, especially if the error is dramatic and preserved in uncirculated condition. There are examples of 30% off-center 1964 nickels graded MS64 and higher that have sold for over $5,000 to $8,000. And coins with overlapping double strikes or off-metal planchets can go even higher, particularly if certified as unique or near unique by a grading service. So, with all of this in mind, the humble 1964 Jefferson nickel transforms from a forgettable coin into a remarkable symbol of hidden treasure, because while over 1 billion were made, only a tiny, elite group of specimens exhibit the traits, errors, and condition necessary to be worth $50,000 or more. And what's so exciting is that these coins are still out there, mixed into old rolls, forgotten in inherited collections, buried in basement jars, or stashed away in safety deposit boxes by people who never realized the silent fortune they were holding. And that's why coin hunting continues to thrill new and veteran collectors alike, because the next incredible discovery might not come from an ancient auction or a wealthy estate, but from someone just like you who takes a moment to look closer at a simple nickel from 1964 and realizes that with the right error, the right strike, and the right preservation, even the most ordinary coin can become an extraordinary fortune.